Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Eddie's parents came over for Christmas dinner, and though they were initially surprised by my appearance, they quickly warmed up to me. Eddie's mother even pulled me aside at one point to tell me how happy she was that her son had found someone who made him smile so much. As the evening wore on and our families said their goodbyes, Eddie and I found ourselves alone on the porch swing, watching the snow fall in the glow of the Christmas lights. "What are you thinking about?" Eddie asked, his arm warm around my shoulders. I leaned into him, sighing contentedly. "The future?" I replied. "Our future. There's so much ahead of us. Wedding planning, starting our life together. And, for me, continuing to explore who I am, who I want to be." Eddie pressed a kiss to my temple. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together. I can't wait to see where this journey takes us." As we sat there, wrapped in each other's warmth and love, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead might not always be easy, but with Eddie by my side and the support of our families, I knew we could handle anything. This Christmas had brought me the greatest gift of all, the freedom to be myself and the love to support me through it all. As Nikki, I was ready to step into the future, hand in hand with Eddie, and embrace whatever life had in store for us. The days following Christmas were a whirlwind of activity. Eddie and I spent every moment we could together, reveling in our newfound engagement and the joy of being able to be completely ourselves around each other. One afternoon, as we were cuddled up on the couch watching old holiday movies, Eddie turned to me with a serious expression. "Nikki," he said, taking my hand in his, "I want you to know that I support you completely in your journey. Whatever steps you want to take, whatever you need, I'm here for you." I felt my heart swell with emotion. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means everything to me. I think I want to start hormone therapy soon to help my outside match how I feel inside even more." Eddie nodded, squeezing my hand. "Okay," he said simply. "We'll research the best doctors in the area, and I'll be right there with you every step of the way." As the new year approached, we started making plans. We set a date for the wedding, a year from now, to give us time to plan and for me to progress in my transition. We started looking at apartments, dreaming of our future home together. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of doubt, of fear. One night, as we lay in bed, I turned to Eddie, voicing a concern that had been nagging at me. "Eddie," I whispered, "are you sure about this? About me? I mean, I'm going to be changing a lot over the next year. What if you don't like who I become?" Eddie propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with such love in his eyes that it took my breath away. "Nikki," he said firmly, "I love you. Not for your body or your appearance, but for who you are inside. That's not going to change, no matter what your outside looks like." He leaned down. "You're becoming more yourself every day, and that only makes me love you more. I can't wait to see the person you'll become, because I know she'll be just as amazing as the person you are now." Tears pricked at my eyes as I pulled him close, overwhelmed by the depth of his love and acceptance. The next few months were a flurry of activity. I started hormone therapy, and slowly but surely, I began to see changes in my body that matched how I felt inside. Eddie was there for every doctor's appointment, every emotional moment, holding my hand and offering unwavering support. We moved into our first apartment together, a cozy little place that we slowly made our own. Shopping for furniture and decor became an adventure in self-expression, as I discovered my own style and taste. There were challenges, of course. Some people didn't understand or chose not to accept my transition. But for every negative reaction, there were dozens of positive ones. Our friends rallied around us, throwing us a housewarming party that doubled as a celebration of my journey. As spring turned to summer, I found myself blossoming in more ways than one. My confidence grew along with my changing body. I started experimenting more with fashion, makeup, and hairstyles, finding joy in expressing my femininity in ways I'd only dreamed of before. Eddie encouraged me every step of the way, his eyes lighting up with pride and love every time I tried something new. "You're glowing," he'd tell me, and I'd feel a warmth spread through me at his words. One sunny afternoon, as we were walking hand in hand through a local park, I caught sight of our reflection in a pond. The person looking back at me was undeniably feminine, with softened features. But more than that, she looked happy, confident, at peace. "What do you see?" Eddie asked, noticing my gaze. I smiled, squeezing his hand. "I see me," I replied simply. "The real me. The me I've always been inside." Eddie wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me close. "And she's beautiful," he murmured. As we continued our walk, I felt a sense of excitement building inside me. The future stretched out before us, full of possibility. Our wedding was just a few months away, and I couldn't wait to walk down the aisle as my true self, to commit to a lifetime with the man who had loved and supported me through every step of my journey. But more than that, I was excited for all the little moments yet to come. The quiet mornings, drinking coffee together, the lazy Sundays spent cuddling on the couch, the adventures we'd have as we built our life together. With Eddie by my side, I felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because I knew that no matter what, I had the strength to be true to myself and the love to support me through it all. As Nikki, I was finally home, in my body, in my relationship, in my life, and I couldn't wait to see where this beautiful journey would take us next. The months leading up to our wedding flew by in a whirlwind of preparations and excitement. Every day brought new changes, new challenges, and new joys as I continued my transition, and we planned our future together. Dress shopping was an emotional experience. My mom and Eddie's sister came with me, and as I tried on gown after gown, I couldn't help but tear up. This was something I'd dreamed of for so long, never quite believing it could be a reality. When I finally found the one, a flowing A-line gown with delicate lace sleeves, my mom burst into tears. "You look like a princess," she said, hugging me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Nikki." Eddie and I wrote our own vows, pouring our hearts onto paper as we tried to express the depth of our love and commitment. We decided to hold the ceremony in the same community center where we'd gotten engaged, decorating it with twinkling lights and flowers to create a magical atmosphere. As the big day approached, I found myself filled with a mix of excitement and nerves. Not about marrying Eddie. I had never been more sure of anything in my life, but about standing in front of all our friends and family as my true self. The night before the wedding, as Eddie and I prepared to spend our last night apart before becoming husband and wife, he took my hands in his, looking into my eyes with that unwavering love that never failed to make my heart skip a beat. "Nikki," he said softly, "I want you to know that tomorrow, when I see you walking down that aisle, I'll be seeing the same beautiful, brave, amazing person I fell in love with. The woman you've always been inside is shining through, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her." Tears sprang to my eyes as I pulled him close, overwhelmed by the depth of his love and acceptance. "I love you so much," I whispered. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. As I sat in front of the mirror, my mom and bridesmaids fluttering around me as they helped with my hair and makeup, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. This was right. This was meant to be. When it was time, my dad came to escort me down the aisle. He'd been quieter about my transition than my mom, and for a while I'd worried about his acceptance. But as he saw me in my wedding dress, tears filled his eyes. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "I'm so proud to call you my daughter." Those words, so simple yet so powerful, nearly undid me. I hugged him tightly, careful not to smudge my makeup. "Thank you, Dad," I whispered. As the music started and we began our walk down the aisle, I kept my eyes fixed on Eddie. He stood at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his eyes shining with unshed tears as he watched me approach. When we reached him, my dad placed my hand in Eddie's, and I felt a sense of rightness settle over me. This was where I belonged. The ceremony passed in a blur of emotion. We exchanged rings and vows, promising to love and support each other through whatever life might bring. And when the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Eddie pulled me close for a hug that felt like coming home. The reception was a joyous celebration of love in all its forms. We danced, laughed, and shared our happiness with all the people who had supported us on our journey. As I looked around at the smiling faces of our friends and family, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the acceptance and love we'd found. Later, as Eddie and I swayed together during a slow dance, he leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear.
"How does it feel to be Mrs. Nikki Edwards?"
he asked, a smile in his voice. I looked up at him, my heart full to bursting with love. "It feels like coming home," I replied honestly, "like I'm finally truly myself, and I get to share that self with you for the rest of our lives." Eddie's arms tightened around me. "I can't wait for our forever to begin," he murmured. As the night wore on and we prepared to leave for our honeymoon, I caught sight of myself in a mirror. The woman looking back at me was radiant with happiness, her eyes shining with joy and love. She was beautiful, confident, and most importantly, she was me. The real me. The me I'd always been inside. Eddie came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and meeting my eyes in the reflection.
"Ready to start our adventure, Mrs. Edwards?"
he asked with a grin. I turned in his arms. "With you? Always," I replied. As we made our way out to the car, surrounded by the cheers and well wishes of our loved ones, I felt a sense of excitement for the future. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt. But with Eddie by my side, I knew we could face anything. This was just the beginning of our story. A story of love, acceptance, and the courage to be true to oneself. And I couldn't wait to see where it would take us next. The honeymoon was a blissful escape from reality, a chance for Eddie and me to simply be together, reveling in our new status as husband and wife. We'd chosen a secluded beach resort, wanting privacy and relaxation after the whirlwind of the wedding. Our days were filled with lazy mornings in bed, long walks on the beach, and intimate dinners under the stars. It was during one of these dinners, as we watched the sun set over the ocean, that Eddie brought up a topic we'd discussed before but hadn't made any firm decisions about. "Nikki," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand, "I've been thinking about kids." My heart skipped a beat. We'd talked about wanting a family someday, but the specifics had always seemed far off in the future. "What about them?" I asked, my voice soft. Eddie's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand as he spoke.
"I know we can't have biological children together, but there are other options. Adoption, surrogacy. I just want you to know that whatever path we choose, I'm all in. I want to raise a family with you, Nikki."
Tears pricked at my eyes as I squeezed his hand. "I want that too," I admitted. "So much. I've always dreamed of being a mom, but I wasn't sure if it would ever be possible." "We'll make it happen," he promised, together. The rest of our honeymoon passed in a haze of love and contentment. We returned home feeling refreshed and ready to start our new life together. The following months were a period of adjustment as we settled into married life. There were small challenges, figuring out how to divide household chores, learning to compromise on little things, but overall it felt wonderfully natural to be building a life together. I continued with my transition, each day feeling more and more like my true self. Eddie was there for every milestone, every triumph, and every moment of doubt. His love and support never wavered, and I found myself falling more in love with him every day. We started researching adoption agencies, attending information sessions, and meeting with social workers. The process was daunting at times, with mountains of paperwork and home studies to complete, but the thought of someday bringing a child into our family kept us motivated. As the warm summer days faded into the crisp autumn air, Nikki and Eddie's life together continued to evolve. Their cozy apartment slowly transformed into a home filled with laughter, love, and the growing anticipation of expanding their family. One chilly October morning, Nikki awoke to the tantalizing aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon. She stretched languidly, her silk nightgown rustling against the sheets, before padding barefoot to the kitchen. There she found Eddie, his back to her as he flipped pancakes at the stove, humming softly under his breath. "Good morning, handsome," Nikki murmured, wrapping her arms around his waist. Eddie turned, spatula in hand, his face lighting up at the sight of her. "Morning, beautiful. Sleep well?" Nikki nodded, reaching past him to snag a piece of crispy bacon. She hummed appreciatively. "What's the occasion?" Eddie's smile turned mysterious. "Can't a man cook breakfast for his gorgeous wife without an ulterior motive?" Nikki raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at her lips. "He can, but I know you, Eddie Edwards. You're up to something." Eddie chuckled, turning back to the stove to flip the last pancake onto a waiting plate. "Guilty as charged. Why don't you sit down and I'll explain everything?" Intrigued, Nikki settled at their small kitchen table, watching as Eddie brought over plates laden with fluffy pancakes, crispy bacon, and fresh fruit. He poured them each a mug of steaming coffee before taking his seat across from her. "So," Nikki prompted, taking a sip of her coffee, "what's going on?" Eddie reached across the table, taking her free hand in his. "I got a call from the adoption agency this morning," he said, his voice trembling slightly with excitement. They have a baby for us, Nikki, a little girl. She was born yesterday, and her birth mother chose us to be her parents." Nikki's mug clattered against the table as she set it down, her hand flying to her mouth. "Are you serious?" she whispered, tears already welling in her eyes. Eddie nodded, his own eyes shining. "Completely serious. If we say yes, we can bring her home in a few days." For a moment, Nikki couldn't speak. The emotions coursing through her were overwhelming. Joy, fear, excitement, love. "Oh my God," she finally managed. "Oh my God, Eddie, we're going to be parents." Eddie squeezed her hand, his smile radiant. "We are. That is, if you're ready." Nikki didn't hesitate. "I'm ready," she said firmly. "I'm so ready to be a mom, to start this new chapter of our lives together." They spent the rest of breakfast in a giddy haze, discussing names and making lists of everything they'd need to prepare. As Eddie cleared the dishes, Nikki's phone buzzed with a text from her mom. "Mom wants to know if we're free for dinner tonight," Nikki called out. "Should we tell them the news in person?" Eddie appeared in the doorway, dish towel slung over his shoulder. "Definitely," he agreed. "And maybe we can stop by my parents' place on the way. I can't wait to see their faces when we tell them they're going to be grandparents." The day passed in a blur of excitement and preparation. They called the adoption agency to confirm their decision, then spent hours online ordering everything they'd need for a newborn. By the time evening rolled around, Nikki was practically vibrating with anticipation as they drove to her parents' house. As they pulled into the driveway, Eddie reached over and squeezed her hand. "Ready to make their day?" he asked with a grin. Nikki nodded, her heart full. "More than ready," she replied. They made their way to the front door, hands clasped tightly together. Nikki's mom answered their knock, her face lighting up at the sight of them. "There's my beautiful girl," she said, pulling Nikki into a warm hug before turning to embrace Eddie. Come in, dinner's almost ready." As they stepped into the familiar warmth of her childhood home, Nikki felt a wave of emotion wash over her. Soon she'd be creating these kinds of memories with her own child. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Her dad appeared from the living room, greeting them with hugs and hearty backslaps. As they all settled in the kitchen, the air thick with the aroma of her mom's famous lasagna, Nikki caught Eddie's eye. He nodded slightly, a silent agreement passing between them. "Mom, Dad," Nikki began, her voice trembling slightly. we have some news. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.